In this town, a lot of people die in a lot of really strange ways. But you won't find that in the news. Weapons comes to us from writer director Zach Cregger, who did 2022's Barbarian. A film that had a strange marketing campaign to the point it was going to lure you in, but it didn't really tell you a whole lot about it. But those that were fortunate enough to see it in theaters were able to bear witness to a new force in horror movie filmmaking, because Zach Cregger understood how to make that film disturbing, how to make it hilarious, and also how to have one hell of a goddamn flashback with some tremendous camera work and also super disturbing stuff. Plus, it had Bill Skarsgård in it, who's a very gifted actor, even if his gifts are not necessarily used to their fullest potential. Looking at you, Locked. The Boy Kills World deserved to do a whole lot better. And also Justin Long, yes, from Jeepers Creepers and Crossroads. God, I wish Victor Salva had nothing to do with goddamn Jeepers Creepers. Crossroads also could be classified as a horror movie, mainly because they thought Britney Spears should be an actress, and I'm a fan of Britney Spears. That being said, Justin Long was in it, and also the very gifted, the uber-talented, and the goddess ethereal beauty that is Georgina Campbell, who is so gifted and so captivating and so alluring, I will watch anything that she's in. Even a film like Tim that wasn't very good. But she'll get me to watch anything. She's not in this, but I just wanted to shout Georgina Campbell and the respective actors in it. And also Zach Cregger understood how to make a horror film very unsettling. Some people were divided on the tone and the end, but I digress. It really was mostly a well-received horror movie. So many people wonder, what was he going to do as a follow-up? Well, basically, the template for this and the theme of this is, and I'm basing this on the trailers, by the way, so if you have somehow managed to avoid the insane amount of trailers, from the first trailer to the final trailer to the advertisements to all this stuff, you've been living under a goddamn rock or under the sea. Darling, it's better, down where it's wetter. Take it from somebody else, not from me. So basically at 2:17 a.m., 17 children from the same classroom got out of their beds, not in the classroom, because that would have been really weird, and why would you have 17 children sleep in the same classroom unless there was a disaster area, in place and sheltering in place? It wasn't that. They got out of their respective beds in their respective houses that their parents own, unless the kids are somehow monumental kid geniuses and not baby geniuses. God, they actually did more than one movie of those. The whole point is these kids went down the goddamn steps, or they just walked out the goddamn door if they're in a single floor home, the poor goddamn saps. And they did the Naruto Run challenge off into the distance, never to be seen again. So, that's the spoiler-free premise right there. For those that have seen the trailer, I'm going to get into a few little trailer things right here. The finger is being pointed at the teacher of this one particular classroom because there's only one student left, Alex, a young lad that seems to be kind of keeping to himself. But this teacher is Justine, played by the very gifted, uber-talented, an ethereal, beautiful goddess that is Julia Garner. The Royal Hotel, the fact that she was the Silver Surfer in, Fantastic Four First Steps, which is a great movie that you should check out. And I thought Julia Garner did amazing in that, and I fucking love Julia Garner. She was also in Wolfman. Bless her heart for trying to make that film work, but it was never going to. But I love Julia Garner. When I saw she was in, I'm like, okay, guy that did Barbarian, he made me love Georgina Campbell. Not that Georgina Campbell couldn't make me love her. And I already love Julia Garner, so if she's on board, I'm all for that. Now, the thing about Barbarian, it was made on a $4.5 million budget and made like 10 times that. So this film actually had bidders. There were studios that were offering like massive figures. I believe the final figure was like 10 to 12 million for Zach Cregger to just do this. This has $38 million budget. Julia Garner's in it. Josh Brolin's in it. Alden Ehrenreich's in this, who is Han Solo in Solo: A Star Wars Story. You have cameo by Justin Long. You have Amy Madigan, who is in Field of Dreams. Benedict Wong. And also, fun fact, I saw this and then Freakier Friday right after it. And there's one connecting person. Not as far as universes, but just as far as the cast. You have Jane Diane Raphael, who is very talented and very, very beautiful, I do want to add, and apparently a comedian. I will have to check out more of her stuff. So yes, a bunch of kids disappear and the fingers are being pointed as to why. I will say that I can understand some people's reservations about how one could follow up Barbarian. And if you do not care for Barbarian, I don't know if you're going to care for this, even though they're entirely different movies with a few tone similarities. But let me just say this much. This is not the scariest movie of the year. It is not the best horror movie of the year. Is it unsettling? Yes, it is. It is the most unsettling horror movie of the year. I'd argue Bring Her Back was more unsettling. But is this film 1,000% worth seeing in theaters? Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, this film is great. This film is a blast from beginning to end. There are people I know that are going to have issues with the build, the fact that it's a slow burn, there's chapter breaks, there's different perspectives of these characters interacting with each other, but it's a nice connected universe that actually just feels like a live world. Barbarian felt like a little time capsule of, life in Detroit, and if you've seen it, you get it. This feels like what would really go fucking wrong if, parents were unsettled wondering what the fuck happened to their children, and could any town USA, small town USA, somehow find a way to maybe come together, or just want to hang Justine. I'll protect you, Julia Garner, don't worry. So, yeah, this film got a whole lot of praise and was a whole lot of fun to watch in theaters, and I can understand some people not appreciating the tone or not caring for the slow burn and not caring for various things that go on in this. There is a bit too much building. I think an edit could have been used, or they maybe could have sprinkled a little bit more horror in early on. But there's an unsettling tone about it, and when the horror hits, especially in the second half, it absolutely is earned, and Zach Cregger has another hit on his hands. I don't know if it's going to make insane amounts of money, but it will be a hit, at least for the first couple weeks until word of mouth gets out, and then we'll see how far that film carries. But it is nice to see this collection of actors, and, you got a bunch of kids being creepy, so right there, you just have a recipe for fucking disaster, because kids are creepy, inherently creepy, and weird. You little shits. Randy Newman was right about y'all, except I don't think he was actually meaning that with short people. But this is a whole lot of fun, and we're checking out. But I am going to get into spoilers, so it's in theaters if you want to check it out, but I got a lot to talk about. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, yeah, we open up with, the narration and everything. At Tuesday, a lot of people die in a lot of really strange ways in this town, but you won't find that in the news. 2:17 a.m., a bunch of kids vanish. We get a little bit of setup. We do get chapter breaks. Justine's the first chapter. Of course, you want to start with Julia Garner on top. I'm not thinking it. Shut up. And we find that she, has some issues from her past as far as a DUI and stuff like that as the film goes on. But she wants to teach. She wants to do well. And she cares about her class. But then when she arrives, she sees, oh, wait, all of a sudden, there's nobody there. There are no kids, Jerry, except Alex. And of course, you have the principal, I guess, so to speak, Marcus, who I just find rather hilarious. Marcus, you'll recognize the actor who plays Marcus, but he is just trying to keep the peace and trying to be understanding and stuff like that. Because as things are going on, Justine's getting blamed. There was a town hall meeting where fingers are being pointed at her. Josh Brolin is pointing the finger at her because he had a son that disappeared. And she wants to find these children too. Now, by the way, I will say Justine did not have anything to do with these children disappearing, but somebody else did. And we find out a little bit more about that. She's trying to contact Alex. Alex is basically telling her to leave him alone, stop following her. Some weird shit's going on, by the way, that we'll find out about in a little bit. She also meets her ex, Paul, that actually is a cop in this small town. Despite the fact she's only been there for a couple of years, it's fine, whatever. And it's her ex, but her ex is happily with somebody. And then the implication is that they may have slept together, but he crashed at her place. There's no way that he would ever do that if he had somebody else. How could he possibly want to sleep with Julia Garner? Who would want to do that? It turns out they actually did, and Paul is a cop and trying to do this investigating, but obviously, even if he wasn't in a relationship, they have some issues. And then the ex, or of the current girlfriend or wife or whatever of Paul, actually finds her in the liquor store that she frequents. Big old liquor store, by the way. That's a big liquor store. And splashes her with alcohol and is trying to do this stuff, but then, she gets dragged away. And she's basically made to me a pariah. And then we get Archer's chapter where basically we find out that Archer had a son, Matthew. Matthew, by the way, turns out to be one of the bullies of Alex. And he's got his own construction company. He's having some nightmares and shit like that. He's seen some weird stuff, such as seeing a weird, gun with 217 on it above some house. And it's really, really goddamn strange. And then he's having nightmares where he thought he was talking to his kid, but then suddenly this weird clown lady with weird clown makeup shows up. Kind of like the ice skating, scythe carrying masked killer in Curtains, except slightly less disturbing. And then we see Paul's chapter, which ties into a guy named James. James was also bothering Justine for money outside of this liquor store to get a bus ticket for something. And also, it turns out James is a drug pusher and trying to break into stuff. And Paul ends up finding him and basically, inadvertently, after reaching in his pockets and pricking his hand with, gloves, but pricking his hand on a needle, and he's a recovering alcoholic, he's not doing all that well, and he kind of, punches James in the head. To be fair, he did warn him, hey, is there anything that's going to be in your pockets that's going to cause me harm or whatever? No, and then he lied. So I don't blame him for punching him, because if you're going to be a drug pusher like that and a drug user, quite frankly, you are opening yourself up for that, regardless from authorities or anybody else. But that being said, we do get various things going on with these characters and this interconnecting stuff. And while Archer's chapter and stuff is going on, we see Marcus doing the Naruto run, running right at the gas station where Justine's pumping gas. She gets attacked, and then suddenly Archer is trying to help her. And there's some crazy shit going on. And then we cut to the other chapter. We got to Paul. We got to James. We find out more about this stuff. And James, by the way, ends up doing something that he shouldn't have, because he ends up basically breaking into the wrong house, because a little bit earlier in Justine's chapter, she goes to find Alex and sees his parents through like some newspaper cover windows just standing there or sitting there on the couch. And then weird shit's going on because they're just like looking really weird and really out of place and stuff like that. Like, that's unusual. Why is it that Alex is the only person that's only kid that's left out of this whole thing? I wonder why. So then, cutting back to Paul and James. James ends up breaking into a house basically during a rainstorm, trying to evade Paul after Paul basically is worried that his body cam, or his police car cam, his cruiser cam, could have caught him punching out James. And he basically tells his superior, and he says, don't worry, as long as everything's okay, as long as he doesn't come in to file a complaint in a month, the evidence will be taped over. Don't know why it takes a month, but it is what it is. James breaks into this house, and it turns out, oh no, he broke into Alex's parents' house. And it's really, really dark. And they're sitting on the goddamn deal. They're sitting on the couch and stuff like that. Well, he decides, since he can't really get their attention, and they're seemingly in the comatose state, hey, let's go rob the silverware. So he does, and he's doing some robbing, and then they rise up and they start attacking. And they shove him, are shoving him down and trying to shove him down. They're trying to attack him. He doesn't want to go in the basement. You know why he doesn't want to go in the basement? Because the kids are down there. Why are the kids there? And why do the kids look all weird? It is really, really scary what's going on. And James manages to get out. By the way, great camera work of pulling the door open. It's like the camera is inside the door. It's really great stuff. And he manages to run out. He tells Paul about all this stuff. Paul puts him in the back of his cruiser, goes to the goddamn house, and then suddenly comes out not looking like himself and drags James back into the goddamn place. And then we cut to Marcus. And Marcus basically, it turns out that he's gay. Earlier in the Justine chapter, he was talking to her. They're at the grocery store buying some stuff. Looks like the same store. There was a liquor store, but whatever, it's fine. It's an all one-purpose store. And they're about to sit down and have some goddamn fun. They're about to sit down and have some goddamn fun and everything. And suddenly, it turns out that this weird lady went to visit Marcus while he was at school, his 2 o'clock appointment. And it is the aunt. It is Aunt Gladys, because Alex's parents can't come to school. They can't come to the school meeting because they're not doing too well. And Aunt Gladys is going to be the legal guardian and everything, but she's not doing all that well. She's got weird makeup and red hair, almost like the person that confronted James in the goddamn woods that was doing the weird waving. And then she shows up later when Marcus and his significant other are there at the table, and they're just having fun. They're just, they're just about to sit down and eat and watch their television in their weird recliners that looks like my grandma had. And then Gladys shows up, and Gladys says, hey, by the way, because you're wondering, like, okay, all this stuff and everything, this is clearly before Marcus started running like crazy, and Marcus actually ended up getting hit in by a goddamn car when he tried to run after Justine. That was a great goddamn scene. But before we see some more of that, Gladys ends up getting a bowl of water and then pulls out this weird stick and cuts her hand. And she also saw that there were some ribbons of principal awards. And she took one of those and she wrapped it up on this weird pointy stick. And then suddenly did this. And Marcus snaps and hits his husband, boyfriend, significant other, whatever, is beating him, headbutting him, turning him to goddamn hamburger, and then keeps doing that. And then she's able to send her off and send Marcus off and take care of Justine. Because one thing I forgot to mention is when Justine was waiting to take care or to possibly talk to Alex, and she was trying to take care of herself, but she was really, really unraveling, somebody got out of the house, snuck in to the back seat, and clipped off a piece of her hair. And then did that stuff with Marcus. Marcus runs, and then ends up getting hit by a goddamn vehicle. And then we find out about Alex, and Alex's Aunt Gladys is going to come visit because she's very sick. Very, very sick. And things are not going well for her. So she's going to come live with the parents. She instantly takes over the goddamn house. She has a weird tree with a bunch of thorns and weird stuff. There's also a brief shot of a nature documentary about cordyceps taking over ants and everything. Jeez. Almost like they're being weaponized. And then, basically, we find out more about Alex. Now, we're approaching the end of the film here. And it did take a little bit to get to the horror. I will say that maybe one criticism I do have. But the aunt, for whatever reason she's doing this, whatever reason, she is basically going to make Alex do her bidding to save the parents. And she can even make them do stuff by, doing the stick crack thing, and they stab each other in the goddamn, cheeks with utensils. And then we get Alex going to school. We see Matthew bullying him. We get a bunch of other stuff happening, brief snippets of things, and then we get, Alex having to do her bidding, feeding soup. This is where Campbell's must have paid handsomely for that advertising. And we see, him feeding soup to the parents, feeding soup to the kids. Why is she doing this? Because she wants to do something. She's fucking evil. For whatever reason that she's doing this. People compare this to Long Legs, and no, I find this to be much better than Long Legs because stuff actually occurs. Also, I'm sorry, I don't care for Micah Monroe, but Alex is seeing how all this stuff is going on, and basically the idea is Gladys is doing this for whatever reason she's doing this. Pure evil to gain her health, because she's got these 17 troubled Utes in the basement, but she's also got control of the parents. And remember the stuff I said about Paul and James? Well, they're in the house also. And we get Justine and Archer banding together to get into the goddamn house, where Paul basically comes out and does like, I take care of the place while the master is away, without the weird knees like Torgo. And Gladys says, just don't step over the salt. Well, when he does, shit goes south. Oh, by the way, Justine and Archer didn't get the memo because they're not going to be warned. They stepped over the salt lines over there, and people start attacking. I mean, it is full bore crazy. We have Josh Brolin throwing the guy to play James around. That was actually pretty goddamn funny. And Justine, you'd think that something's going to happen where Justine is going to get weaponized, or possibly Archer's going to get weaponized. and it's a ladder. At one point, he gets his necklace ripped off. She's able to wrap that around and do that stuff because things are starting to go south. Even when Alex steps over the goddamn salt, they start doing all that. And it's nuts, and people are just freaking out. He, however, is a smart kid and ends up taking some of the tree and some of the stuff and takes something from Gladys and is basically able to do this, and he is able to suddenly control, and he is able to send the children after Gladys. And they go after Gladys, and they are running through houses, they're running through windows. It is amazing. There's some great goddamn camera work here. And they find her, and they rip her apart. I mean, it's body horror crazy. It's not like The Substance, but they rip her apart. I mean, rip her asunder, and then that's it. Everybody's kind of going back to normal, except the parents aren't going back to normal because they're still kind of goddamn off. So they're being fed at some kind of assisted living facility. Some of the kids even learn to talk again, but some don't. And we see this shot of, Archer carrying Matthew away. But maybe things aren't all that well. And who knows? We might possibly get a Weapons 2, Cregger Boogaloo. It's definitely a weird movie. It's definitely unusual. I do wish there were a few more things explained, but I certainly don't mind the fact that this film was bonkers when it wanted to be, and a lot of fun, even with the slow build and some little bits of unevenness. So I give it an A+. I had a lot of goddamn fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritland. Until we weaponize again, happy trails to you.